do this. Okay, this is episode 41 of the 100 podcast. I brought in Jonny Bernstein. I'm hyped about this one. This is my biggest one by far in the 40 episodes I've done. Professional bodybuilder, been in the Mr.Olympia twice. But yeah, bro, how's your day going? Are you what's up, man?
It's been going good, man.
Yeah.
Just been trying to stay busy, stay active, through this crazy time right now, through this pandemic. So, just trying to keep busy as much as I can to, make time go by faster. But, I'm doing good, man. It's been a while since we've seen each other. We go back, we play football together, in high school. So, it's good to catch up, man.
Yeah. And I that's why I wanted to bring you in, man. We went to the Lincoln together, we were both athletes. You were in track, I believe, and football, and I don't know, maybe even another sport. Baseball too, yeah. So you were already an athlete, and most people right out of high school, they're trying to figure things out. They're kind of like, I don't know, I feel like even like me, for example, you think you're kind of like peaking in high school, and then you get out of high school and you just like, life gets, you get slapped in the face with life, and you... I just felt like you had a goal in mind, like right out of high school, and I don't know if this is exactly what happened, but it just looked like you just shot, bro. You just like a rocket. You were driven, and right out of high school, you just kept going, and you kept making steps forward, kept leveling up, and I don't know, just speak on that. What got you to where you're at now? What made you be a professional bodybuilder?
So I actually, after high school, I went to college in LA. Was playing football at El Camino. My dream at the time was, to play pro ball. I think that was all of our dreams.
Yeah.
But I was studying kinesiology, nutrition, and reality kind of kicked in, and I just realized, I have a small chance at making it in the pros. So for me, I wanted to do something along those lines, whether it was like a nutritionist for a team or like an exercise strength coach type thing. But I got more serious into weightlifting, and I just kind of took off. I decided to take a break from playing ball and just kind of get my body in the best shape I could. I mean, I grew up reading comic books, so when you're younger, you always want to look like the superheroes and all that. But for me personally, I've always been fascinated on how the body functions, the muscles. I mean, it's so extensive. And somebody told me one day, you should compete, you got a good look. And I actually looked down on it. I didn't think I'd ever do that. I was like, that's dumb as shit. I never would have competed, but, the competitive side of me wanted to do something more with it. So I decided to try it out. I did my first show in 2013. I was 20 at the time, so I was still really young. And I compete in the men's physique division. So it had just hit the circuit. So for me, I saw it as, an attainable look. And
what is the men's physique
so we wear, instead of wearing, they call them, posing trunks, which is like what the bodybuilders wear or the classic physique competitors. We wear board shorts.
Oh, I get
we get the most shit because a lot of people talk shit about us saying we don't train legs. But I mean, if you see some of the top guys, some of their legs are better than, some of these other guys that compete in bodybuilding. So we wear board shorts. It's more of a male model look. And when it started out, it was very streamlined, like an Abercrombie and Fitch Hollister / model. But it's evolved so much, today that some of these guys, it's hard to believe how big they are. So me being young and the look was a little different at the time, I got into it, enjoyed it. And then I actually took an 8-month hiatus because I didn't have a coach that I worked with. My first show, I did it all by myself. Had no idea what I was doing.
Really? So how did your first show go?
So I actually hired a local coach out in the desert, and after about 4 days, even though I knew very little about the sport and dieting, I told you, I'd been going to school for nutrition, and the guy that I was working with had absolutely no idea what he was doing. He was just kind of winging it. So
you were like, I already know more than what you're kind of teaching me. So
I mean,
or I could figure it out myself.
Exactly, yeah. So for me, I'm like, why am I going to pay somebody to do something that I can do myself? And mind you, I was probably about 50 to 60 pounds less than what I am now. So I lost about 12 pounds in like 3 days, and I went to ketosis pretty bad, something I'd never experienced before. So I got off of his diet at like 5 weeks out, did my own thing, ended up taking second in my class, and then I decided to take a break from there on out, and I didn't compete again until the following January.
Can you speak on ketosis? What is ketosis?
So it's when the body's, like when you do like zero carb, and the body's using fat for energy. So I don't recommend it.
A lot of people that's like a trendy diet
so
right
you can I'm not going to delve too much into that just because like a lot of people like have different opinions. Me personally, I don't do it. I would never recommend it to anybody. So
it's like the keto
but you just get crazy headaches, your energy's low, and it's just not something that I would ever do again.
Yeah,
but I didn't realize that I was in it until I did my own research afterwards and was looking it up, like all my symptoms, because I was getting lightheaded, I couldn't eat, I didn't have any energy, I was losing weight like crazy. Like I'd gotten into really good shape, and then when I decided to compete, I just kept looking worse and worse and worse, and people thought I was like I was sick with something. Like with some disease.
They thought you're dying or something.
Pretty much, yeah. I was at the gym one day and someone's like, yo, like, are you good? Like, you look like you're sick. Like, you've lost a crazy amount of weight in such a short amount of time. And I thought that was normal because I'd never done a contest prep before. I never competed before. So I was very naive, but I learned real quick that, that's not the way to go. So I kind of did my own thing, or what I thought, was going to put me in a position to win. And that was a learning experience.
Yeah.
But I ended up competing again that following January. I actually got a real coach. And in less than 6 months, I turned pro at my first national show. I was 21 years old. So I was definitely one of the youngest pros at the time when the division first took off. So that was pretty exciting. And then less than a year later, I qualified for my first Olympia. It was my third pro show. I was 22 years old. Like I said, still a young kid, but everything just kind of happened so fast for me. And, I was still a huge fan of the sport, so I was just taking it all in.
You just had to jump on the rocket. You're like, I'm going, man. Bro.
Yeah, like I said, I had never experienced anything like that before, so I was still trying to, enjoy everything that was being, coming at me. But at the same time, still being a fan of the sport. And it's a surreal feeling competing against guys that, I literally had posters of them on my wall, which is it's still pretty crazy to me.
What was your biggest, I guess, fanboy moment? Who'd you see and you're like, damn, I'm actually
It was definitely backstage at Olympia, guys like Jeremy Buendia, Sadiq, Jason Poston, all these guys and Matt Acton, all those guys were some of the first pioneers of our division. And just to be able to be next to them, while we're all pumping up, getting ready to compete against each other, I knew there was no way that I was winning that show.
You're just enjoying
let alone place in the top 10. Like I said, I was 22. I was just a kid at the time. So I was just happy to be there. I don't give a shit where I place, just
be a pro.
I was a pro. I had, qualified for the Olympia. I was actually the youngest guy out of all the divisions in 2015. I was 22 years old, man. So for me, I was like, man, this is a dream come true for me. Because a lot of these guys, they spend their entire life trying to, get their pro card or, compete at the Mr.Olympia, which is what Arnold Schwarzenegger used to do, Ronnie Coleman, that was just on Joe.
The pinnacle.
Exactly, bro. It's the Super Bowl bodybuilding. So when you're competing, that's where you want to get to. Obviously, the end result is winning, but just to be able to make it to the Olympia, it's it's a feeling
you're on that level. You're
competing.
there.
You're competing with the best of the best. You're competing with guys from all around the world. And like I said, for me, it was guys that I had followed on social media when Instagram first popped off, and I had posters of guys on my walls I would look at for motivation. When I first got into bodybuilding, and Alex Voiles, Voiles. Voiles is the one that really got me into bodybuilding, man. He, we used to train together. He's a great workout partner, a great friend, but
he's a savage.
I owe a lot to him, man, because he's the one that really got me into bodybuilding and you know, gave me all his old magazines, and I would flip through it, look at supplements, workouts, all that.
So you went from football and what was there's a point where you just decided, I'm going to go all in on bodybuilding. I'm just going to start.
Yeah, like I said, it was the competitive side of me. I wanted to try something different. So I competed, but I'll be honest, I had no aspirations of turning pro or competing at Olympia. To me, that was like, yeah, those guys are cool, but I never really saw myself doing that. And it wasn't until I got with my coach, who I also owe a lot to, Ryan Benson of Team Zero Gravity. He's out of Montclair. And when I was working with him, you know, it was just a different atmosphere at his gym. It was balls to the wall.
Gotcha.
But there was a lot of camaraderie, you know, training at his gym. We'd be training, you know, every day together, and, you know, during the week, and then we'd be competing against each other, you know.
And they kind of have that locker room feel?
Kind of. It reminded me a lot of that, even though bodybuilding is, you know, it's a very selfish sport. It's a very self-centered sport, and you're, you know, the amount of effort you put in is how you're going to do. It's not a team sport, but there are teams out there, you know, that, you know, people have the same coach and all that. So I was one of the first pros and one of his first guys to compete at the Olympia. So it was a surreal time for me, man. It was, like I said, just trying to take it all in, absorb all of that, and, you know, and just enjoy the ride.
And on competing, did you ever experience any like stage fright standing up there?
I mean, yeah, when you're
crazy to me, bro.
When you're about to go on stage, man, your heart's, you know, going like crazy, and you're nervous and you're sweating. And for me, I used to get this when I was, you know, running track or before, you know, kickoff.
Yeah,
you know, you'd have to take a
the
piss.
Butterflies. Yeah.
You get butterflies. You got to go to the bathroom.
You got to take a piss.
You know, before track meets, you know, I'd be in the blocks, like, and I really have to go to the bathroom. And then as soon as it's over, you're cool. So, I mean, last time I competed was over 2 years ago, and still as a pro, man, I get, not, I wouldn't say stage fright, but, you know, you just get a little bit of butterflies, and I'm sure a lot of other pros can attest to that as well, even though we've done it several times. You know, the fanboy in you still kind of feels a bit nervous on stage, like, but it's all part of the process, man. You just have to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're almost like, is this real?
Yeah.
Am I this guy?
Plus, not to mention, you have these, you know, bright lights that are shining at you, and you can only see the first couple of rows. You can see, you know, the judges are in the first row, all the immediate staff and all that, but everybody else in the back is just pitch black. So, you know, you can't really see anything, but like I said, man, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it.
I saw on one of your Instagram posts you were one of your posing when you're posing, and it was talking about you know, just being simple. Do you have any I don't know, anything you could recommend to anybody that's into bodybuilding about maybe when they're posing to do some of the simpler moves rather than getting too wild? I saw you guys.
Yeah, man,
a little bit back and forth.
Posing is such an underrated aspect of competing, and a lot of amateurs and a lot of pros too, you know, can't pose that well. So I always, you know, offer, you know, my help, my advice whenever I can, but I see some of these guys that are trying to copy routines of these pros, and what you don't realize is everybody's body's different. So what some pro might hit during a pose will look different on somebody else. So it's cool to see other people, you know, the admiration and wanting to be like, you know, this person or that person, but if you can't execute, you know, a proper routine, you're not going to place very well. And that's made or break, you know, guys that have placed first and second. You know, I see a lot of guys that get upset because they don't win a show or they don't place well, and they're like, well, I look better than that guy, or, you know, it was political or whatever. And I will say, yes, and everything in life is political. But I've gotten beat by guys that weren't well known. When I first competed with Zero Gravity, I was one of the first pros, and we went out to the East Coast. There was like 5 of us. No one really knew who we were, and out of 5 of us, 3 of us came back with our pro card. Wow. It just goes to show how important posing is.
You know? Like, it's political just like everything, but if you're good or if you're great, it'll show.
If you're undeniable, there's no way they're not going to give you the win. But if it comes down to you and somebody else and their posing routine is just more fluid, it's more crisp, they're going to go with that guy. Regardless if you have bigger arms or a bigger chest or your abs are more defined or whatever, it comes down to posing at the end of the day.
So what is the full criteria when they're judging?
So with men's physique, they judge on musculature, they judge on conditioning, and there's the phrase in competing, conditioning wins shows. So the leaner you are, the bigger you look on stage. With competing, it's all an illusion. So you can be 200 pounds on stage. For example, I've been on stage at 200 pounds, and I look a little watery, I look kind of puffy. But I've also been on stage at like 185 and I look the best because, you know, all the muscle bellies are full, all the conditioning is there, all the cuts are deeper, and it just gives you that pop. You know what I mean? So like I said, it's all an illusion on stage. So the leaner you are, the less you weigh, the better you look. That's my opinion, you know, and that's just from personal experience. So, you know, there's so much that goes into competing, but you know, if you have a solid posing routine, you know, you show up ready and conditioned, and you know, you got a good look.
Speaking on showing up ready and conditioned, I don't think a lot of people understand this, or they do, and they just don't like that type of work. What is the day-to-day, week-to-week leading up to a show, bro? How hard is that on your body? How ruthless is that?
You know, I enjoy prepping. For me, I don't find it hard. Like it's easy for me, to be honest, it's easy for me to stay in shape. Like right now, like I look nowhere near contest ready, but I feel like for not competing in 2 years, I haven't been on any sort of structured plan. I mean, I ride my bike, you know, sometimes for cardio, but if you stay ready, you never really have to get ready. You know, that's a big thing in our sport, is that, you know, and especially as a professional, you know, for me, I hold myself to the highest standards, so I try and practice what I preach. You're not going to want to buy a diet plan or listen to somebody's advice if they look out of shape, you know? So I try and practice what I preach, but I also don't go out there and say, this is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong. You know, what works for me isn't going to work for somebody else, and vice versa. But, you know, I can tell you, conditioning is so crucial. I've shown up to shows, and I'll give you another example. The last time I competed at Olympia was in 2017, and still to this day, I will not post a picture of that Olympia because I looked absolutely horrible.
What happened?
I had a lot of personal things going on, and I had done 6 shows in a matter of like 8 or 9 months. So my body was just fried.
Yeah.
So when I did take a break, I didn't have enough time to kind of like let my body recover, my mind recover. It was just like I had like maybe like a month off, and then it was like back into it. And you know, my coach was out of town. I wasn't able to go out and see him as much. Like I said, I had a lot of other things going on. My mind wasn't there. And that's why I always tell people now, like, if you're not mentally ready to do a show, like, don't do it. You know,
you got to be 100% in.
Competing's always going to be there. You can be physically ready year round or close to it, but if you're not mentally ready, like, that will screw up your chances of doing well. And that's exactly what happened to me. Like, I think I probably placed dead last at that Olympia, and you know, when I don't really talk about it, but you know, if it ever gets brought up, you know, people are like, yeah, but you know, you compete at Olympia, like that's awesome, you know, you're with the best of the best. But it's like, for me, I'm ashamed of the way I looked because I know better than that. My coach, you know, knew better. All the judges have seen me before. They know that, you know, that's
you competed with the best of the best, but you weren't at your best.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I was at the worst I've ever looked, and for that look to be on the Olympia stage, man, was a complete embarrassment. So, you know, I've done 2 shows since then. I did 2 shows, you know, 2 years ago, and I did okay. I didn't do well, and at that point, I was like, I need to take a break from competing. So I decided to step away. I went back to school, actually. I went to school for EMT and firefighting.
Gotcha.
So I'm kind of, going that route right now. All of that testing is on hold due to the coronavirus.
Yeah.
But, I'll be 28 in November. So by the time I'm 30, I want to have a career, financially stable. And I'm still going to compete.
Speaking on financially stable, does bodybuilding, does that help? Do you get any sort of finance? Does it help you at all financially?
That is the $1 million question, man. People think just because you turn pro,
you're rich.
You compete at Olympia, that you're making all this money. That is the biggest misconception in the industry.
Yeah.
I didn't get my first sponsorship until a year after I competed at my first Olympia. So I had gotten my pro card, was competing as a pro, qualified for Olympia, and everything was coming out of pocket except my first Olympia. You have the NPC, which is the National Physique Committee. That's the amateurs. And then you have the IFBB, which is the International Federation of Bodybuilding. That's the pros. So the IFBB paid for everything at my first Olympia, my travel, my hotel. They gave us allowance for 3 days. They took care of us. You're competing with the best in the world, but it's still not sufficient enough to live off of. So unless you're, top 3, top 5 at Olympia, and you have sponsorships that are paying you, you have endorsements, there's not much money in bodybuilding. So a lot of the competitors are online coaches, personal trainers. They have their own supplement business, clothing, whatever it may be.
Couple different jobs.
I was working at a restaurant, while competing, and, people are shocked when they find that out. I'm like, look, man, competing's great. It was great to do it. I did it full time, and I was making enough money to live off of at that point. But by that time, I just kind of got bored of it. I wanted something more out of life. So I decided to kind of, I took a break and went back to school, and I miss competing, but at the same time, I know it's always going to be there. So
I know you said you're going to school right now for like firefighter, EMT. Is that a passion for you? You want to help people out?
It definitely is, man. My older brother is an EMT in New York, and that's kind of the reason why I went that route, man. So he's been working on the front lines of this pandemic, the whole way through. And I got into personal training when I was 18 because I wanted to help people and, change somebody's life. And firefighting and, being a first responder goes hand in hand with that. And, there's a lot of physical work involved, which is right up my alley. But I just wanted to do something where I could, give back to the community, as, cheesy as that sounds, but also have a sense of gratitude. A lot of these competitors nowadays, all they do is compete, and that's what I used to do because I felt like I needed that to, validate myself. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, we're in the most subjective sport there is in the world. There's going to be people that are going to like you, and there's going to be people that aren't going to like you just because you look a certain way or, what have you. But I just wanted to do something more with that. Competing is a hobby for me. I did it as a career for a little bit, and just came to find out that that's not something I wanted to do.
So competing, once you get your pro card, you have it? Is that yours?
Yeah, you have to pay, and they still make money off of you. So you gotta pay $250 a year, and that allows you to compete for the full calendar year. So say if you're gonna compete in December, you buy your pro card December 1st, you compete say December 8th. Your pro card expires December 31st, and then you got to buy a new one every single year.
Wow.
I've been fortunate enough to, have sponsors throughout my career, whether it was a clothing sponsor, supplement sponsor, tanning sponsor. When I was an amateur, a lot of that came out of my own pocket. And even when I first turned pro and was competing as a pro my first season, a lot of it was still coming out of pocket. And some of my supplement sponsors, one of my supplement sponsors, the one that I have now, it's pretty cool because a lot of competitors nowadays just want to be with a company to get paid. But the company I'm with, Global Formulas, they actually only bring on certain people that actually take the product, that stand behind it. So it's real easy to promote it when you're genuine about something, and they have incentives. So you have a discount code, you sell, they pay you commission. If you place in a show, they'll also reward you with money every month. So stuff like that, I really like, because it just goes to show that they're willing to invest in you as much as you are in them. Whereas some of these other companies, if they see you have hundreds of thousands of followers, they'll want to sign you to make money off of you.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it's such a diverse sport, and there's so much that goes into it. So I always tell people, like, if you want to compete, that's great. Make sure you have a backup plan, with your financial state.
Unless you're built like fucking Hulk or something.
Bro, even if you're built like that, you still have to market yourself properly. And that's one thing that crazy, I didn't do, and I still really don't do to this day, is I don't market myself as well as I could have, just because I was so focused on competing and living the life as a bodybuilder, was eat, sleep, train, bodybuild. Exactly. That I didn't really take the time to invest in social media like some of these other guys.
It's almost build like your own brand from
exactly.
You.
And I see some of these other guys that are making tons of money off social media, but they haven't done nearly as much as I have within the industry. You know what I mean? And me,
make sense.
A 2-time, men's physique Olympian, I don't have a crazy amount of followers. I'm not making a ton of money off of social media. I could maximize that and make more, but at the same time, like, that's not my focus. My focus is, having career in something outside of bodybuilding and kind of building my empire there. And by the time I'm 30, have a pension started, and have enough money for, I definitely want to start a family at that point. So I don't want my family to ever worry about money. I don't want
nice retirement.
I don't want to be banking on the next check for,
that's crazy,
me placing, which is what some guys do, man. And it's mind blowing, because some of these guys, and a lot of them are amateurs that I know that are literally, they're quitting their jobs to do this full time. And I'm like, you don't realize how much money you're not making, by doing this. You're just setting yourself up, for financial discipline.
You're not looking in the long term at all. You're looking right now, and it's like you still got to focus on, okay, well, 10 years from now, where's my money going to be?
Exactly.
Where am I going to be set at? Am I going to have a house? Am I going to be able to afford anything?
And that's why I was fortunate enough to start when I did, when I turned pro at such a young age, and I got into it. And part of me kind of felt, embarrassed to start everything for my career, later in my 20s. But at the same time, like, I look back on when I competed, when I first started, and I don't regret anything, because I got into it when I had just started out. And I always tell people now that if I hadn't started when I did, I wouldn't do it now.
Bro, and honestly though, like, did you really start your career in the late 20s? Like, you started a career, basically got to about the pinnacle. You got to, the Super Bowl of it,
exactly,
Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Like, what else could you do out of it? Like, keep focused on marketing and kind of like bullshit that you're not even that, doesn't fulfill you, like, so you wanted to move on, start another career.
That's kind of where I was at. It was like, when I think about, like, I'm starting my career in something else, later in my 20s, I look back on my early 20s, and, I thought, honestly, I was going to compete for the rest of my life as a career. Because I had gotten to the top at a young age, and a lot of these guys that I was competing with were, 10 years my senior, that had been competing for years, that transitioned over to the men's physique division because it was still brand new when I started. So a lot of these guys had been competing for so long and had never even come close to the success that I had had.
Do you think if you kept competing, you had a chance to win that men's physique competition? Maybe not next year, maybe not 5 years, maybe even 10 years.
I mean, I always think about that, because I was, pretty consistent in placing the top and, going to show after show and doing well. There's actually, in 2016 in the fall, I actually placed second in 3 consecutive shows back to back to back, which was very rare at that time.
Yeah.
So going into the 2017 season, I was actually leading in points. So when going to Olympia, they've actually changed the rules back and forth a little bit. But when I first started and I was competing, the only way to qualify for Olympia was to either win a pro show and you get the automatic qualification, or you accumulate enough points. So that's by placing
just high
2 through 5 in a show, and you get a certain amount of points. It's like a tier system. So being second in 3 consecutive shows, I was already at 12 points early on in the season. So I was in the lead for the longest time, but then, you know, guys started catching up and doing more shows, and, you know, I went into the 2017 Olympia tied in the lead with points.
Oh shit!
Which was pretty cool for me, man, because I'm looking at other guys that, you know, I've competed against before or had, you know, crazy social media followings, and here I am seeing my name at the top of that list.
That's fucking crazy.
You know, and I was just, man, it was like I said, a surreal feeling. I think back on it now, like, man, you know, I enjoyed it while I was doing it, but I wish I'd, you know, stopped to appreciate it a little more. So
yeah.
When I do go back, because I am gonna, you know, compete again, you know, I'll definitely make sure to appreciate it more, and, you know, I'll definitely have, you know, that hunger back when I decide to step on stage again.
Yeah, that seems like it's a needed couple year break. You know, you kind of got there so fast. It's like, all right, now you need to kind of
and I hadn't had
figure yourself out a little bit.
And I don't consider the 2 years I've had off, I don't consider it like an off season, because I haven't treated it like a proper off season. You know,
well, you're still working out and shit.
I mean, that's
time,
honestly,
you know?
that's just genetics and consistency with my training. Like, I don't eat like complete shit, but I mean, if I want like a burger or like, you know, a pint of ice cream, man, I'm not gonna stop myself. You know what I mean? But it's just consistency. Like, people don't realize how crucial being consistent is with your training. I mean, being consistent with your diet is even more important. But just all the years, I mean, I started working out when I was 14. When I got to La Quinta for football, you know, I was in weight training all 4 years. And that's when I started, you know, really weight training and getting into weights, learning proper form, all that. And so that's kind of when it started. But it wasn't until after high school when I really, like, delved into it. And, you know, I got a certification, and I decided to be a personal trainer. And that's kind of how everything started for me. But consistency is key, as cliche as that sounds. And that's with anything in life. Bodybuilding, playing football, your academics, you know, trying to get a promotion at work, whatever it is, consistency is key, man. So like, going to the gym for me is therapy. Like, it's a hobby for me. I enjoy doing it. It's not like, oh shit, I gotta go to the gym today. You know, so when people ask me, how do you find the motivation to work out? I've been doing this for
forever, bro.
A while now. So for me, it's not that I need to find motivation, because I don't need motivation to go to the gym. But I will say, when you're in contest prep, you know, 2 to 4 weeks out, and you're seeing lines that you don't normally see, or, you know, you're in shape, it does give you a little bit of a push, or that motivation to want to do better and to want to just, you know, keep going. Because something I always, you know, remember is there's always somebody out there that's working just as hard as you, if not harder.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, the last 2 years I've been working out, you know, consistently at least 4 days a week. And so I'm not really in that mindset anymore of feeling the need to get on stage and feeling, you know, empty, because that's how I used to feel when I would take, you know, a couple weeks off or a month off from competing. I always felt like I was missing something.
You're just still working on yourself. It's exactly. Like the gym's therapy now. It's not something that, like, is a means to an end almost, you know, like a means to get to that bodybuilding show, you know. Now you're just enjoying it again.
I always tell people competing's always going to be there, so I know if I want to take time off and do something else, then I can go back to it. I still have, you know, that pro card, so I can, you know, jump right back into it again. But you know, with this virus going on, all shows have been canceled or postponed.
Yeah.
And normally the Olympia is held in September in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's
did it get postponed?
It did, yeah.
Really?
So it got moved to December at the end of the year, which is kind of cool because it'll be a little cooler in Vegas. Not that I mind the Vegas heat, because, you know, you always go to the pool parties afterwards. You know, you're in shape, but
oh yeah, you do, not me. But yeah, that's cool.
It'll be interesting to see. You know, first if it still happens. As of right now, it's still supposed to happen, but you know, it'll be at a different venue this year, which is the first time in, I mean, since I can remember. and it'll be, you know, in a different month, so the weather will be different, and I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm not qualified for this year. I don't know if I'm gonna make a run at it, just because I want to start prep when I know like shows are gonna happen. There was one that just happened, an amateur show in Oklahoma, but for all the other shows, I mean, they have set dates to them, but it just depends. If things don't get any better, man, they're gonna either postpone them or cancel them.
And I wouldn't be surprised, you know, they did that thing with Coachella, the same shit. They postponed it and they're like, okay, well, we're going to just do it next year. Which everybody already knew.
Well, they postponed that to October, but then I just saw something the other day that it's now that and Lollapalooza are canceled.
Yeah, it's canceled till next year. It's already
done. I was actually supposed to go to EDC this year, and I had gotten my room in advance and everything, and then I canceled my room right before they announced they were going to postpone it. And as of right now, it's still supposed to happen in Vegas in October, but that's still up in the air as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that gets canceled.
So speaking on all of your shows and everything, have you had any crazy stories? Any crazy travel stories? Anything you can speak on?
Yeah, man. So my first and only national show I did, it's called NPC Universe. It was July 4th weekend of 2014. It was in Teaneck, New Jersey. So flew out to the East Coast, super humid out, ugly ass weather, but I literally spent every last dime I had on that show, from travel to hotel to food to tanning to eating out afterwards, and that was to get my pro card. So for me, it was like make it or break it, man. It definitely broke my bank. Crazy. And funny story, but one of my teammates who turned pro with me, his flight left the day before all of ours, and then my flight left the same day as everybody else's, but mine left at 6 a.m., whereas everybody else's was in the afternoon. But I was so broke that I had to split an Uber with my buddy to the airport like a day in advance.
And stay the night.
Stay the night in the airport with literally no money to my name, a bottle of water, and 2 packs of Pop-Tarts, bro.
No,
I stayed in. I slept.
And you just got your pro card.
I slept in the Newark airport for 14 hours. I mean, I didn't sleep the whole time, but I was there chilling. And I couldn't even check myself in. I had to stay out. Like right when you walk in the airport, that's where I was. So I had my phone charger, my phone, headphones, whatever. But I had like literally no food, no money. I kept filling my water up to try and keep myself like full and hydrated.
Damn, man.
I came back. I flew back from Newark Airport, New Jersey to LAX with $0 to my name and 0 in my bank account. Like
Jesus. And that's a driven guy right there.
Bro, it was worth it. Like I would go over. I would do it all again, man, because getting your pro card to me was still probably my greatest accomplishment within the sport, and I think I'd have to say that over qualifying for both Olympias.
Yeah.
Qualifying for Olympia was a dream come true. Like, I'm not trying to discredit that, but getting my pro card, I honestly thought I had no chance, because at that time, I was, like I said, I was 21. I was like one of the youngest guys competing at that time, but also in the NPC, they split the classes up by height in men's physique. With bodybuilding, it's by, they have the 212, which is 212 and under, or they have the open, which is you can be as much as you want.
Gotcha.
And some of these other divisions, separate you by weight. But with men's physique and the amateurs, they separate it by height, and then when you become a pro in men's physique, you're competing against everybody. So you'll be competing against a guy who might be 6'6" and another guy who's 5'2". So it's pretty cool to see. But I was in the E class, which is up to 5'11", and they measured me wrong. But anyway, I ended up taking second in my class, got my pro card, and there was about at least 50 guys in my class alone.
Damn.
Which was the most at any show, I believe, at that time. So to be able to place in the top 2 and get my pro card at that age against some of the best competitors around, the nation, it was a surreal feeling for me, man. And it took a while for me to absorb, but at that time, getting your pro card was so prestigious. And I feel like nowadays, and again, not trying to discredit anybody, but I feel like it's a little easier. And I'm sure it was easier to get my pro card at the time that I did it than it was before the guys that got it before me. So, the division's evolved and competing's evolved, and it's cool to see where it is now. But yeah, getting my pro card honestly was still probably my favorite accomplishment, because I literally spent every last
How do you do that,
cent,
bro? What in you told you just risk it all? I'm just gonna do it. I don't really have.
For me, it's all or nothing. Like I've been an athlete my entire life, and I've always been one of the better players, on my teams, and I have such a competitive streak in me. So for me, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna go balls to the wall.
And just do it.
And I was a personal trainer at that time, and I was making very, very little money, and I was going to school, trying to balance that. So I started saving money, and then I actually asked one of my clients to help me out. So we made a deal where she was going to give me the money to pay for my show, my registration, my tanning, my flight to, round trip to and from, and I was basically going to train her in return for as many sessions as the amount of money
was
she
needed. Yeah.
So it worked out, man. I was very fortunate to have people in my corner to help me out. My family's always been extremely supportive. So I got really, really lucky with that. And, I owe a lot to my family and friends who've always supported me. And with bodybuilding, like I said, it's a very, very selfish sport, and I know people that have lost friends, girlfriends, family over competing, because you have to, eat at a certain time. And if you want to go out, you have to eat certain foods. You have to eat a meal before you go out, so you're not tempted to eat while you go out. Or most people just don't even go out at all. And I tell people, you don't have to be a caveman. You don't have to stay inside and keep to yourself. I mean, that's the best way you're going to stay on track. But at the same time, like, there's ways you can balance it out and not have to shut people out of your life. And like I said,
it's a big juggling act.
It's there's, in anything, you have to find that perfect balance.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've been in positions where I've I felt like competing was taking over my life, and fortunately I was in a few relationships during my competitive career, and my significant others at the time were very supportive. Some had even competed with me, or had competed before, so it was nice to have that in common. But there were times when, like, I would get off work at like almost midnight, and I'd still have to do cardio the next day, or wake up early the next morning, and I had another session of cardio to do. So I'd go to the gym, do my cardio, get home by like 3 a.m, and then I'd wake up at 5 and do it all over again. But that's something that not a lot of people can do. And for me, I enjoyed that process. I enjoyed being one of the select few that was able to stay disciplined and stay focused and motivated enough to do what I needed to do.
I'm going to wrap it up on this question, and you can plead the fifth on this question if you'd like.
I know it's coming.
But I feel like this is, everybody knows this question, but how prevalent are roids in bodybuilding? And I don't want to ask you personally, did you take roids or anything like that?
So I will say, people, like, the general sense is that you have to take steroids when you compete. That question, there is a lot of truth to that, but at the same time, I did know one of my buddies who actually turned pro with me was 100% natural. I will bet my life on it. He had turned pro, and he competed in the pro leagues. Never won a show, never qualified for Olympia, but the dude just had the craziest structure, the craziest aesthetics, and he did it 100% natural. And I always tell first timers, don't be so quick to hop on a cycle just because that's what everybody else is doing, because you don't realize you like within your body, like your body, the human body is an amazing machine, and you can put your body through so much, and you can manipulate your body and make it look a certain way without doing any performance enhancing drugs. With competing in bodybuilding, if you want to compete with the best, it's kind of, goes without being said that you should probably hop on some sort of cycle.
But that comes after you obviously got to take care of your diet. You got to obviously get your body in the best shape possible before you go and take that next step.
When people are like, what's the most important thing? I would say diet and cardio. You can, if you just eat clean without doing any sort of exercise or weight training, whatever, you'll notice how much your body will change. But adding cardio and a weight training regimen will just make that even better. So, I mean, I'm with a supplement sponsor. I promote the supplements because I do take them, but I don't say you need to do this to look like this, or you need to you gotta do this amount of cardio, or you gotta do this exact routine to look this way. Like like I said, everyone's body's different. But
is there any supplements you would recommend for anybody? Like I don't know, just for somebody working their ass off, like like BCAAs or protein.
So a lot of people don't like BCAAs because they think they don't work. Personally, I notice I always feel better. I can work out longer. I can train harder when I use them. Like I said, I'm with Global Formulas, and their pre-workout is, I don't know if you remember, but John Mason used to always give all of us the original Jacked. Yeah. If you ever remember the original Jacked. So right before practice, he would divvy it up into little baggies and put it in our locker room. So we would take it right before practice, and we'd get out on the field.
He would do that for you?
Fucking wired as fuck, bro. So there was an ingredient in that called 1,3-dimethylene, or DMA, and it was deemed illegal now. So a lot of the supplements that used to have them don't have that anymore, but there's a loophole. There's an ingredient called it's called 2-aminoisoheptane, and that's actually DMHA, so it has 80% of the effects of DMA. So it's very, very similar, and the pre-workout that I take, it's called Super BioFreak. It has a sufficient amount of that, but it also has a lot of other ingredients. One in particular that's 98% L-Dopa extract. Mm-hmm. So it gives you more of like a euphoric feeling, and it levels out the stimulants. So you don't feel cracked out. You don't feel like, your heart's going to burst out of your chest. Gotcha. I will say, start with half a scoop just to build your tolerance up. For somebody like me whose tolerance is extremely high, I take a scoop of it every time I work out, and it's the best pre on the market. It's the strongest pre on the market. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you want. I can give you the information.
Drop your
and all that.
Drop your Instagram and shit right now.
Yeah, so it's just Jonny_Bernstein, and if, like I said, any of you guys got any questions, feel free to send them my way, and I'll do whatever I can to help out. But as always, man, it's good to catch up with old friends. I appreciate you for having me on here.
I appreciate having you on.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like I said, next time we'll do another one for sure.
Yeah, if you guys are getting any supplements, reach out to Jonny. He's got the hookups.